Hi everybody. Today I'm going to show you how I made this flower. It's very simple and it's a nice way to use up all your scrap paper. You could play around with the height and the width of the paper that you use, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. I've already pre-cut some of this, and I had from one of the DSP packs a 1-inch piece of paper. It was a strip of 1 inch by 12, and what I did was I cut it into quarters, and when you cut it into quarters, it'll make this flower over here, the front one, the thinner piece. If you cut it into 1/2 inches, it'll look like this. Now, with playing around with this, I do recommend that the shorter the flower, the thinner you use the strip, because it did get a little tight in here where the petals were too close to each other for a single flower, and it wouldn't sit plump up here. It kept sitting flat. So I do suggest that anything that you do less than a 6-inch length would be for sure a 1/4 inch width. Now the strips I have here, I cut to 1/4 inch by 8 inches because I did want to make a thinner layer behind these bigger petals just for it to stand out a little bit. My bigger petals here were 1/2 an inch wide by 8 inches, and all I needed was 4 pieces, just as I do for all the flowers. All you need is 4 strips. And these strips were 1/4 inch by 6. So the more layers you add to the front, the shorter you want your strips. The more you add to the back, the longer you want your strips. And then the width you just play around with. And what I did was I cut my 1-inch strip here into 1/4 inches, and then I measured to the center. The easiest thing to do, really, so you don't have to measure, is to fold your strip in half, and you could just do this to one of them. Fold it in half, and then you have that score mark. And what you could do is you can, on the Stampin' Up! Piercing pad, take your piercing tool and just go straight into the center of the paper. Then you can make a little hole on each end. Flip this around and do it on this side. And what I do is then take the rest of the strips, put them under the initial one I pierced, and then just go over the same hole so that everything is in the same place. Other than that, all you really need is a brad. And what I do is I take my first strip and I put the brad from the front of the side that I want showing. And what you're going to do is basically create 2 X's. So here's my first X with 90-degree angles, and then I'm going to fill in the other 2 spaces. And just keep in mind to hold your brad in place. So in essence, what you're doing is sort of making an asterisk. Then I flip it to the back, and what I do is just bring in the ends of the petals. And there's no order to this. You could bring in any one of these, but just make sure that once you start, you just go around. It's just a little easier. Just bring them in over the brad. And you can add more petals if you want. I just find it nicer to do it this way. Just put in 4 strips and you can get 8 petals, and then alternate like I did, and there you go, just close the brad. And you can alternate your petals by doing 2 flowers with different colors. So you can see in the front here, put my finger back there, I've got 2 layers. The first one is an orange front, and then the other one is a blue front. So I'm going to take my flower and I'm going to adhere it to the back of this one, but just alternate. And the nice thing about this is that since these are all attached with a brad, you can adjust your petals to make sure they sit between the ones in the front layer. So let me just stick this down. And I've already got my dimensionals on here. So let's do this. There we go. Now, you notice that on the layer that I just demonstrated with you, I did use a brad. You can only put so many layers through one brad. The thinner pieces, I managed to get 2 in there, but it does get kind of tight. You may want to put a piece of sticky strip on the back of the brad so that it doesn't open. The wider one, I just used a tiny brad for it, a mini brad, and then this back layer, I used one on the other side, which is fine. I used one of our old brads, the glimmer brads. You're not going to really see it, so I put it in the back, and there's your flower. Now you can make these as full as you want, reduce the layers, you can make them shorter to get a smaller flower where the 6-inch strip is your longest piece, and then work your way down. It's all by preference. I hope you enjoyed this video.